The United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres is in charge at a time of considerable war, hunger, and political discord around the world. But he says the UN's power has to be used wisely. So, no intervention, at least not yet, in the diplomatic standoff between Qatar and its neighbors in the Gulf Cooperation Council, or GCC.
I've expressed my support to the Kuwait mediation initiative. And I think that is probably the most useful way for the UN to cooperate in trying to address a situation that is complex and in which, as I mentioned, I think the leadership should be a regional leadership.
Guterres met with reporters on World Refugee Day. He said this year's observance comes at a difficult time for millions of people.
We are seeing more and more borders being closed. We are seeing more and more refugees being rejected, and namely in countries of the developed world. And this is particularly worrying, especially when associated to forms of political populism, xenophobia, racism, in which refugees become a target.
Guterres also criticized the Trump administration's America First approach to foreign policy, which includes cutting financial support to the United Nations.
I believe that if the United States disengage in relation of many aspects of foreign policy and many aspects of international relations, it will be unavoidable that other actors will occupy that space. And I don't think this is good for the United States, and I don't think this is good for the world.
But one analyst questions whether the UN under Guterres can fill the leadership gap.
Guterres has a fundamental problem, which is he is leading a global organization at a time of global disunity. And that puts huge political limits on what he can do. If Russia and the US come closer to an all-out conflict in Syria, then I'm afraid that Antonio Guterres and the UN as a whole are not going to be able to save us from the results.
Analysts and diplomats say that Guterres' political and management skills made him the easy choice when they were electing a new Secretary General last year. Now that 6 months have passed, these observers say it's time for Guterres to put those skills to use vigorously and publicly. Rosiland Jordan, Al Jazeera at the United Nations.